Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. As responsible anime journalists, I feel like it is important that we start this episode with a review of Megan Thee Stallion's Otaku Hot Girl.
Ah, yes.
Have
There
you
is
guys
a
heard,
well. There
you guys
there
heard
is a
this?
no, but I have seen that she had released a single earlier that was like themed after a One Piece character, Boa.
Oh, that's a different song, actually.
Yeah, I know, but there's also a
Yes.
song on her new album called Otaku Cosplay Girl or whatever, or Otaku Hot Girl.
Otaku Hot Girl, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
yes.
I wanted to shout this out because it's mostly about Jujutsu Kaisen, which
fucking course it is.
Again, establishing that Jujutsu Kaisen has become the new shonen anime frame of reference for everyone. But
we have to go back.
At least in the broader scheme of things, she is on our side. We may not be fighting in the same wars, but she is on our side.
This is no shade to Megan Thee Stallion, who has long been a loud and proud anime nerd.
Yeah.
And this is not the first time she has referenced anime in any of her music. But anyway, a couple things I liked in this song. First of all, it starts with a very famous scene from Jujutsu Kaisen that we have discussed on this very podcast, in which one of the characters asks the main kid Yuji what his favorite type of woman is, to which he replies a very tall woman with a huge ass or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so she actually got the English VA to say that line, followed by including Grammy winner Megan Thee Stallion to open up the song.
That's a power move,
which is a pretty powerful move.
So, because I was going to ask, like, did they sample the episode directly? But that raises, like, obviously they didn't in this case, but that raises another question, which is, did they have to license?
Yes.
Like, what's the
I was actually reading they were about to make her pull the song last minute because she couldn't get clearance for all of this, and then they finally figured it out before the song came out. But yes, that was actually a thing. Because yes, you would think they would need some kind of, and she does mention other characters and stuff in the song, right? But
right.
I do find it amusing if we want to tie this all to the Kendrick and Drake beef recently. A lot of people were saying Kendrick popped out like Sukuna, which and she does say that in this song. Not as good on that one. I do like my favorite line though, which is let me see if I can find where that went. Oh, I thought I had it.
I mean, in all fairness, we have to give Megan credit where it's due, because even though, like, Kendrick is, surfing on the waves of this season, she started this season. Like, she dropped that Nikki diss in, like, January, February or something. Like,
yes.
She walked so Kendrick
all the diss tracks. She was in the yes. Okay.
I feel like starting a beef with Nicki Minaj is like shooting a shark inside like a teacup.
All right. My favorite bar from the song was I'm not finna argue with a Sasuke Avi, incel mad, I'm a weeb and a baddie. Y'all dudes, which I'm substituting for another world, would be my biggest haters, knowing if we met you'd fold like paper. So that was my favorite bar from the song.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yes and no, because like otaku culture and hip-hop culture have been intermingled for a long time, just like how hip-hop culture was intermingled with like kung fu movies back in the 70s, right?
Yeah, it kind of
there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah, there's a lot of anime crossover with hip hop, but yes, I just like that she directly called out the incels who hate her because think she's a fake fan or whatever. But yeah, anyway, the song's fine. It was fun. I just wanted to shout that out. Moving along, we've got some anime left to talk about from the spring 2024 season. It's time to tie a bow on all that, wrap things up on the shows that we watched. The season that will forever be known as to me anyway, as the band drama season. But before we get into that, let me introduce everybody. I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iroh.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet. I survived conquering the Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Oh, you've actually
I've
finished it. Huh?
received the grace of gold once again.
I played 2 minutes, immediately died to the first enemy, and said, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to come back to this later." So,
Yep.
That's my experience by playing all of Hollow Knight.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. But it that first moment you walk into the new area, it was like, oh right, Elden Ring is really pretty.
Yeah.
Was it good? Would you say overall expansion? Were you satisfied?
That's a complicated question.
Okay, maybe perhaps another time after G and I have had time to play it.
Parts of it were very good.
Okay.
Other parts of it I don't think are very good at all.
Okay. Interesting. We'll have to maybe dive more into that later, but we're also joined by Zig.
I am coming to you fresh off of like 6 hours of raiding, so forgive me if my voice is a little bit all over
Destiny raiding.
Yeah. I was about to say, Zig, have you gotten into critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV, the latest expansion of which was released last week?
Dawn Trail, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm not cool enough to play Final Fantasy XIV, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Somewhere around here, I still have a sampler disc for original Final Fantasy XIV, which I was given at a Final Fantasy concert.
The dreaded 1.0, as it is known.
Yeah. I'm not trying to play that game for a fourth time. If you can't get me to 3 times, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And for unprecedented 2 episodes in a row, we were joined by Aqua.
For a second there, I thought I was going to get third billing, but you gave it to Zig. That tells me something about my position at this organization.
Look, I have an order that I announce everybody in my head so I don't forget. So it has nothing to do with.
And I always go last.
Anybody's
You'll be
position
first against the wall when the revolution comes.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, unfortunately, G could not make it. G could not make it to this episode, but that means we have a rare combination. I don't know if the 4 of us have ever been on the show.
I think maybe once.
Maybe once. I mean, in the history of time, we've been doing this a long time. Probably maybe once, but it's very rare that any of us are missing. So.
That's right, folks. We're going to talk about Tokusatsu and kids show all podcast long.
Without G here, I can't hold you back. No. Yes, it'll be interesting. We will try to keep our energy up. I'll bring bring some of G's hot-blooded energy to the podcast in his absence.
Good, y'all.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about some anime that is completed.
Anime. I've heard of that.
As of some of these, as of like 2 hours ago.
I got into anime because of the Megan Thee Stallion album.
Yeah. So let's start with talking about Sound Euphonium Season 3. I know, Aqua, you mentioned you have not caught up on this, so I will do my best to kind of recount. What is the last... What's the last thing you remember happening? Where did you?
I was going to say, speaking of bad bitches dropping mad tracks. No, the last episode of Sound UFO Season 3 I watched is the one we discussed on the previous podcast. I unfortunately didn't have the time to catch up.
Okay, so you didn't miss. Well, I mean, you didn't miss the last 3 or something, but
I missed half of the show. I think the last one I watched is like episode 5.
Oh, okay. so you didn't see up to where. Okay, because you weren't on the last.
All I know about this show right now is I saw a headline on ANN that was along the lines of "Original writer of Sound Euphonium shocked at twist in anime."
Yes.
Is the twist that they were lesbians?
Wait, really?
No. I think in the original novel. So correct me if I'm wrong, Gel, but somehow both Kumiko and new UFO girl get or win a thing, like an audition or something like that. And in the original novel, it's only one of them.
Well, let me explain what happens then.
Yes,
by all means.
I would not necessarily describe it that way.
Okay.
So where I remember leaving off on the podcast anyway was
we left off basically right before they did the auditions for.
Yeah, so they were doing the auditions for the who's going to play, and they decided to do a weird thing where they're auditioning for every performance, which everybody was like, kind of what why are we doing this? And everyone's like, there's some drama because everyone's like questioning the teacher, like, what is he thinking? What's going on?
We know that Taki Sensei is like basically an abusive piece of shit who should not be in education. But to continue.
So they end up having auditions to see who's gonna be in the actual like performance, because there's they have more. It's a school band. They have more people than they need for the actual performance, and they also have auditions for who's gonna play the solo parts, right?
Yes.
And so the main source of drama in season 3, as we've mentioned, is this new senior girl that transferred in. She's a year 3 like everybody else, and she plays Euphonium, and she's been challenging Kumiko's position as the top Euphonium player, right?
Right. And her whole deal seems to be that, like, initially she seems to be very like conflict averse and chill, and then Kumiko's like, no, you should tell us how you really feel, and everything will be fine. And then of course this ends up backfiring horribly for Kumiko.
I mean, she makes a great antagonist, because she's not like intentionally hostile per se, but she's definitely playing some mind games, because like eventually Kumiko's little assistant girl, the second year girl,
Kanapi,
calls her out because the new girl is really annoying, because like she's constantly being like, oh, Kumiko, if you don't want me to play the part, I'll just drop out, it's fine. And Kumiko's like, no. That's not how we do things around here. You're gonna have to earn it, and stop assuming that you're just gonna beat me, right? So
yeah.
And finally the Kumiko's little Kohai assistant is like, you just keep nagging her to make her tell you to quit, so you don't have to feel bad about quitting yourself. And there's all kinds of mind games. It's great, really, actually. Delicious band drama. But anyway, this all leads up to their second to last performance. They do their auditions, and Kumiko and the new girl get the Euphonium parts, and Kumiko's little assistant girl gets cut out, which she is not happy about. And then they audition for the solo part, and Kumiko actually loses. And so that just reopens that. The girl's like, I'll drop out again, really? And at this point, it's just like so on purpose. It's very like very patronizing, like, and it just again makes her like a very good antagonist in this situation.
I'll drop out, but you'll know in your heart that I beat you.
So Kumiko's pretty. I mean, she's not happy about it, but she's makes peace with this, because there's still one more performance to go, right? And of course, it's stirring up drama in the band, because everybody likes Kumiko and wants her to play the part, and they're like, questioning, is there other motives behind all this or whatever? And it's, again, delicious band drama. So they play the second performance. They make it to the big finals, whatever it is, and they have to audition for the finals.
Right, and it's like regionals and nationals, right?
Yeah. So now this is like the nationals, right?
Yeah.
And they get to the auditions. Same thing happens, except the teachers decide, we're not going to decide who is going to play the solo part. We can't decide; it's too close. We're going to have you play for the students, the band, and have them vote on who's going to do the solo. This is
so the kind of like juicy shit they pull in a reality TV show.
Yeah, this is so good. This is so good. So to go take it a step
off the island,
to take it a step further, Kumiko is like, okay, we'll do that, and we're gonna do it blind, so they can't see who's playing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's how you're gonna have to do it.
And they're gonna have to just vote blind, and it's very intense and dramatic. I love it. They get to the end. They both play their part. Honestly, I can't tell the difference. I'm not. I'm not enough of a classical music nerd to really be able to tell. Right. They both sounded good to me. And finally, everybody votes. And Aqua, you're gonna especially appreciate this. Everybody votes, and it's a tie. And they're like, "What? It should be. There's not even a number of people. What?" And they look up on the stage, and the only person who hasn't voted is Reina. Because she's standing on the stage, and she's like, I haven't voted yet. And it's a super
let me
intense...
guess. Reina votes against Kumiko.
And Yes, Reina votes against
Yes.
Kumiko because and you know what? Not only is the drama good, I do appreciate they stuck to their guns with the whole like the best person is always going to win, is always going to be the one that plays, even
and
if...
I mean, no one embodies that more than Reina, right? Like,
yes, and especially with Reina more than anything. And you know, that happens, the new girl gets the part, and later on Reina has a total meltdown because she feels like she betrayed Kumiko, and
which she did.
It's all, she's like, I should have known your sound. It's so good.
Your sound euphonium.
And yeah, and then you know, Kumiko also finally breaks down because she's now finally just letting out her feelings, and it's all very good. But
delicious. Nom 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 nom.
I think what they did an even better job with is they kind of have been setting up in the background of all of this the fact that this is still just a high school band, and you all are going to have a life after this. Like, this is not as big a deal as it feels like right now.
It's like, and that probably stands up more in a season that has also had girls band cry and such, right? Where it's like they are dropping out of school and stuff to do their band stuff, as opposed to
girls band cry actually matters.
Yes, that actually like depends on whether they can pay their rent or not, right? But in this situation, you know, other than like Reina, who's a psychopath, none of these people are going to be professional. None of these people are going to be professional musicians, right? Like, this is just their high school activity. And that, and the girl from Liz and the Bluebird, she's already like a pro at this point. So, so they do
makes it so like realistic, because these freaking band nerds just cannot think of anything else than
and they do a great job of keeping that in the background, so that by the time we get to the last episode where they go to finals, you kind of don't care if they win or not. Like, and you know, spoilers, they do get the gold.
The real
end.
Sound Euphonium was the friends we made along the way.
Everybody is happy, but honestly, I think it would have just been the same, like whether they won or lost. Like the point was, like, they've kind of established that, you know, there are bigger things happening, and you know, there's one more nice moment where this whole time Kumiko has refused to teach Sound Euphonium to anybody. Like, that's her. That was her present from Asuka Senpai.
Yeah. The song Sound Euphonium. Yes.
This is the actual song Sound Euphonium.
I was going to say, did you guys just start calling the euphonium the Sound Euphonium?
No. This is like a song that is a plot point in season.
Yeah, it is an actual piece of music written by her senpai's dad or something that nobody really knows, and she gave it to her at the end of season 2. That was like the big title drop. And so Kumiko kind of when Kumiko gets annoyed or whatever, she goes and plays Sound Euphonium like in the back of the school, and she's been refusing to teach it to anybody. And so finally, she teaches it to her little Kohai assistant girl. So because Asuka Senpai did say it's your job to carry, you know, pass it on to your juniors. So there's a nice moment with that, and everybody graduates, and they kind of go to the epilogue. And you know, spoilers.
Get our ending slides.
There are ending slides, and then, you know, the final little bit of epilogue. A couple years later, they reveal Kumiko's decision, which they haven't told us what she was going to do this whole time.
Right.
But she stays behind to help be a teacher at the school and be the next band director. And it's a nice.
That's kind of a safe.
It's very safe.
Right.
Yeah. Well, because it was like they kind of, this season, part of the season was Kumiko kind of discovering she was not going to be good enough to be like a pro musician, right?
Right.
So, you know, finding what she was going to, but she still wanted to be part of music, and so that's
those
kind of the safe.
Those who can do, those who can't teach.
Yes, while Reina goes off to America to study music, you know, Kumiko stays behind.
Guess America.
Yeah, the place to learn euphonium, I guess. Anyway, overall, that all out of the way, I felt like I had to get that delicious band drama off my chest because it was very good. I'm shocked
before we get to the rancid band drama.
Before we get to the delicious in a different way band drama, girls band cry. I'm still shocked how much I ended up enjoying season 3. Especially like the first couple episodes, I was not feeling it. And I think they managed to pull it together. I mean, Aqua, you've seen enough to kind of know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's good, right? Because this is not a, let's, rummage in the closet and see what we still have lying around. Oh, yeah, sound euphonium. Let's do another one of those. Like, it sounds like they actually had something to say, They had a story to clear up.
There was a purpose and a plan, and they carried out the plan. Yep. And yeah, it's top anime comebacks here, I guess. So yeah, and this is the end of the story. So I think we're done, and the story is complete. And I think overall,
I think the original author is planning or has already published a book about like the school, like the other school that like Kumiko's old friend goes to, who like occasionally pops up. So I don't know, maybe we can have more band drama to look forward to.
That sounds like a hard sell to me, but I said that about season 3 now, so I don't know. But
it's hard to imagine Sound Euphonium without like that core of messy Kumiko and her psychopath girlfriend,
I guess the question I have here is that, do you think this season 3 is good because the story was good, or do you think it was good because KyoAni made it good? Does that make sense? Like the distinction there?
A combination of both, I think.
Okay, that's good.
I actually would lean toward, I mean, KyoAni does a good job as always, but I don't know if I was really blown away by any particular like scenes and I'm not up on what happens in the novels at this point, so I don't know what they changed, but the story is that's the strong point here.
The thing with Kyoto Animation is like we like to dunk on their source material, and the thing is always like, oh, Kyoto Animation can polish a turd into like, they can take the most generic source material and turn it into something halfway like redeemable, but like you can still tell the KyoAni shows that are based on like absolute irredeemable garbage from the ones that have some kind of kernel of quality to it. Like the original K-On! Manga, like dunk on it all you want, but it does have like those characters and those goofs that have become memorable in the Kyoto Animation adaptation. So I do think that like I haven't read the Sound Euphonium novels, but I can't help but imagine that a lot of the strengths, a lot of the things that we like about this show are there with like the people at Kyoto Animation, the writer, the director, occasionally putting a little spin on things, focusing on particular things. Like, for example, highlighting more of that dynamic between Kumiko and Rain. I'm not necessarily even talking about, making them more gay, just like more focusing on
their relationship.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, to like make that story a better version of itself.
As opposed to whatever the kid's name is that nobody cares about, that she literally does not talk to him in the second half of the season 3. Like she doesn't even talk to him in the second. I think he has like 3 long lines of dialogue.
Trombone kid.
They give him the honor of showing him in the montage of all the band members at the end.
He died on his way back to his own planet.
So wait, isn't it like that he gives her a thing at the end of the movie, and it's like, if you want to
no.
give this back, or like what is it?
No, that all happened in the movie. So in the movie, he gives her a hair clip, and they go on one, parentheses number 1 date, and then at the end of the movie, she gives it back, and she's like, nah, it's not happening. There's no indication that anything will ever happen.
But you do see that hairpin in her final, in like the shot of her as a teacher, I think, because I've been seeing that around Twitter.
Oh, maybe I missed that then. Okay.
Because no one cares.
Yeah. I was so far out of my mind at that point that like so maybe, I don't know. All I can tell you is she does not say a single word to him in the last 6 episodes of season 3, so that's all I'm going on. All right, Sound Euphonium, good show. I think total package of season 1 through 3, every season has been solid. Season 1's probably still the best, but
And don't forget, Lizard the Blue Bird, also part of their franchise, also
yes,
good.
the expanded
Yeah.
Sound Euphonium universe. So
the Kumi verse.
I'm glad they could bring it home. So
yeah.
All right.
Who would have thought that a show about a bunch of high school girls arguing about their band would be so successful?
Yeah.
Please, Toei Animation, listen to this podcast.
So
you say that like that hasn't been a noted type of show for years. Like Bochi was not that long ago.
But we've got
but Iro, in the shows that they make, they don't argue enough. We want more shows about arguing, especially in public places.
Sure.
Well, we've already mentioned Anime of the Year Girls Band Cry a couple times now, so let's talk about that. We had our final stretch here where,
let's see, girls confirmed, band confirmed, Cry as of this last episode confirmed. So 10 out of 10 Anime of the Year.
That's kind of every episode, right? But so
mostly it's girls band shout.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Nina cries every episode. Well, somebody check the tape on that. But the final stretch of episodes, it was good because like, so basically to sum up, and Aqua, you can jump in if I'm missing anything here, but to sum up, like the final stretch of episodes is like the girls starting to build some success. They have like a good good performance at a festival. They get signed to a agency / record label, whatever they were calling it. They write a new song that they start professionally recording with a producer. Things are just seem to be finally like lining up for them, right? Yeah, and I think they did a great job of making everything feel kind of off, even though nothing bad was happening. Like everything was going good, but the whole time I'm thinking, this is going a little too smoothly.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Because like you could watch this and you could argue, it's like, whoa, things are going like really fast for them. You know, oh, they're already signed to a label. Oh, they're already playing a festival. Like it usually doesn't go that quickly. Like your average season of Love Live, like generally, like ends with them doing their first big gig at the Love Live festival and going down like a Led Zeppelin. But like.
Here, I mean, there's also just the rule of drama, which something must go wrong because otherwise there wouldn't be a story.
Right, and there need to be stakes, so they can amp up the stakes by like making their ascent go surprisingly smoothly, so the fall hits bigger. And also,
and all this is happening over the course of like maybe 3 or 4 episodes, so it's not like one episode, but it is.
But also, like this is the age of the internet. Like it can happen that you, as your band, like do one gig that happens to go viral and then like you get signed and you release a single. Like it can happen. And usually what happens then is that people accuse you of being an industry plant. But like sometimes you can have this kind of meteoric rise, especially in, let's call it, smaller music scenes. Like, I mean, I would say the Japanese music scene is small, but it is small compared to like the American or the international music
just by numbers, right? Like facts.
Yeah.
So everything is going smoothly. I'm like, something bad's gonna happen, right? Because this is Girls Band Cry, and so
I mean, this is Juki Hanada. Like this kind of follows the plot trajectory of every Love Live show, where like it turns out, like we get no likes or no votes, or like we thought we were doing well, but that doesn't translate into numbers. Like he loves that trope.
It's particularly, I mean, it's pretty devastating when like one of the episodes ends. They finish recording their song. They've got everything ready to deploy on all platforms. Nina's going to bed and she's like, please, I hope we get 1 million views. I'll even take 10,000 views, whatever. And she goes to bed. And I feel like we've all been doing this long enough to have experienced
She makes up that their music video has like about as many views as an episode of this podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, she goes and checks the numbers, and it's like 100 views or something on their video that they worked so hard on, and it's just like it's just devastating.
Yep.
And then they're talking to like their manager, and their manager kind of implies that, well, not implies. I mean, she tells them, we put it out there, all of your searches were up and everything, there were people looking for you, but that did not translate to any more viewers, which is to say that nobody deliberately liked your song. They heard it.
I mean drop you like a hot rock.
That's a great moment, because Nina is like, but we're popular, people come to our concerts and people like us and we went viral, but then why didn't the video get more views? And everyone else is like, because the song sucked.
well, I don't even know if they were saying the song sucked, but I kind of took it as they were like, I feel like they were going for, which is an important thing in, I feel like especially music, but kind of anything, is that good does not equal popular.
Right. It's one thing and the other. It's like, people can get like swept up in the hype when you're at a festival and they happen to be there and they see you playing, but that doesn't necessarily make these people fans for life who are going to like follow you on social media and stuff like that.
Subaru had the hardest hitting line in all of this, where she says, if you were looking up a Let's Play and there were two Let's Plays, one had 5,000 views and one had 1 million views, which one would you click on?
Yes.
Damn.
And it was like, damn, that was a heavy line.
Super Gaber Subaru-chan. But like, I think there was definitely the implication that like the song simply wasn't good enough, like especially with like Momoka like quietly leaving and just going back trying to fix it.
Right.
So, question, is the song bad in real life as well?
They never actually played this song.
That's actually probably a pretty smart move.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to talk about whether the music's actually good or bad later, but once we wrap up the story stuff, because I have things to say about that as well. But
I mean, we've skipped over a couple of episodes, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of speed ran through that whole progression because I felt like that was kind of like the whole overall plot. But if there's something specific you want to mention in those episodes, Aqua, go for it.
I think it's interesting to talk about like episode 10 with Nina and her dad, right? Because I think like a lot of was it 10 or 11? I don't know. Like the one where she goes back home, right?
Yes.
Because I think like a lot of the discourse about this show is like, I've seen a lot of people being like, oh, I don't get it. What was her problem? Like, what happened?
Oh, really?
To her?
People were not understanding why that was a problem?
Yeah. I mean, because the show never explicitly, like, shows Nina doing a thing that causes her to be bullied, that causes the school to like turn on her, that causes her to drop out. Like,
I know,
but they don't need to show. They don't need to show exactly what happened. The point is that she was getting bullied, and they were asking her.
When you're an idiot, but they don't. Actually
right?
do
I was going to say, audiences have been coached to single issue psychology.
Mm-hmm. Right? Media literacy is dead, et cetera, right? Yes. I mean, I thought it was pretty clear that she was getting bullied, and they were asking her to apologize for it to cover it up, right? And including her own father, and that's why she was pissed at him, right?
Yeah,
understandably.
Yes. But like the thing is, like, people are so used to like sweeping drama and like, oh, it's the reveal of her tragic backstory, that they forget that like Nina is a teenager and teenagers overreact, and this kind of stupid shit can spiral out of control so badly that something as ostensibly simple as her backstory, as of like, oh, a girl was getting bullied and I stood up for her, but my friend said, yo, we probably shouldn't do this because then they'll bully us, but I still did it, and now my friend is mad at me and everyone is bullying me. That this kind of situation to a teenager can like be a life-defining event.
I mean, on the internet, it can be a life-defining event for anybody, right?
Yeah, and I thought they made it pretty clear her dad's kind of an asshole even beyond that, like with their like mandatory family dinner things and all that. Like,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like so, an educator who writes books about how to raise your children properly, but can't raise his own daughter properly.
So I felt like, again, I mean, I guess I'm giving people too much credit to be able to figure all that out themselves, but I feel like that's all pretty clear when I was watching it anyway.
I mean, like, this also extends to people being, like, mad that she, quote-unquote, forgives her dad at the end. Which is, like...
And I actually really liked kind of what happened with all that. Because it was like...
I kind of
it was
get
not,
that, and, you know, like,
that's
the
how...
internet... Yeah, the internet is big on, like, oh, you don't owe your parents anything, blah, 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 blah. But, like...
That's how real... that's how real... life works, folks.
Yeah,
like,
and also
with your family,
like, and also like it's clear that her dad did have good intentions. Like he did try to do what he thought was best for her. Like
there was nuance to the situation,
right?
And it's not like she just was like, "Oh, everything's cool now." It was basically like,
it's just like, you know, let's just forget about this and move on.
And that's how it is when you have, you know, that's how it is when you're dealing with family that you maybe don't get along with. It's pretty.
Yeah,
there'd have to be some pretty crazy stuff going down for you to just be like, I'm never talking to you again, right? Like it's there was a lot of room for middle ground and all of that.
That's the thing. Like there is wriggling room between like, oh, my parents are perfect and I love them, and my parents are abusive monsters. Like there is
just to play devil's advocate here, though. I think there might be some sort of backlash to that because anime, and you know, this has to do with a cultural thing, but there have been so many examples in anime of parents genuinely being like total monsters, and the trope is that people still forgive them even though they're super Hitler or whatever.
Right,
you know?
right.
Like the audience is sort of preconditioned to be skeptical of that kind of thing because a lot of the time it's done without the necessary steps towards
and
I like, oh, Soletta forgives Lady Prospera because she's her mom,
even though she killed thousands of people. Prospera should be in jail.
This is nothing like that at all. And Nina, Nina still leaves and cuts off, like she stops taking their money and everything. It's not like she's like, oh, we're cool now, I'm gonna go, you know, I'll see you at, you know, Christmas or whatever.
And her dad also like realized that he did something wrong and tried to fix it.
Yeah, so, and there was some measure of contrition there. So like people are just missing the nuance on all that. I think I personally think it was fine, but in fact I think they actually did a good job with it. That was a good part, and that was kind of part of the, you know, everything resolving itself in that final stretch of episodes, right? Including, I guess, some of their personal stuff going on. I mean, there was also the Nina's whole thing with her ex-classmate, who is now the lead singer of Diamond Dust, which is also like,
I kind of like how this show like never has any clean breaks, as in things are never fully resolved.
Yes, so much like the situation with her dad,
right? And like the whole thing with Momoka as well is like, it's like, oh, they get her to stop running away from everything, but even in episodes after that big epiphany, you still have some parts where Momoka like tries to get out of stuff or like give up when things become difficult. And like the same thing with Nina, right? They have told her like, and she gets a little bit better every single time, but in the end, she is still, you know, Nina. She's still gonna stir shit over like the smallest possible things. And that's also the case with like her relationship with the Diamond Dust girl, like her ex-friend Hina, where it's also like, yeah, this is a teenage girl argument, you know? It's like a small thing that spiraled out of control, and at this point, they have been fighting for so long, they have both developed into kind of different people. So they have a sort of like, their current status is like frenemy-ish. Like,
I don't know if I would go that far, but they have a
I mean, there's the whole like bit where like with like, oh, I made you look like there's like a begrudging sort of acknowledgement.
Yeah. And I appreciate, once again, like her dad, they kind of did not back down on, she is kind of an asshole, like this other girl. Like they don't really redeem her either, but it's which is good. But
I do like how the final revelation is like, oh, she did not join Diamond Dust to spite me. Like, she joined Diamond Dust because she was also a fan of Diamond Dust.
Right. And I think we all knew that.
Yeah, obviously. Because, you know, we are, you know, we like to not think that the world revolves around us like Nina.
Yes. Well, and again, I guess that kind of just brings it all down back to Nina, the main character.
Mm-hmm.
Great job at making her so obnoxious, and yet like intentionally they've made her just like really annoying
everything
person.
Wrong. She does not deserve anything she gets. Her friends are enabling her and giving her a bunch of stuff that she wants that she does not deserve, and yet I love her.
And yet we love her. I don't know how they pulled that one off, but bravo, fantastic job with Nina. All right, yeah. So
so is the music good?
Okay, yeah. So great show. Stories wonderful, characters wonderful. It's probably my favorite thing I've seen this year.
So before you go on to the music, is there actually like a resolution to this season, or do they just leave it? Like, is there any sort of resolving moment? Or anything?
I would say there is some kind, like
because the way you've been talking about it makes it sound like it just sort of cuts off in full flow.
The thing is, like, I think with both Nina's personal arc and with the arc of the other characters, and as like the band as a whole and their values and their ideals, they're like sort of at a point where, like, it's not necessarily that they fix their problems, but you do see the characters in a place where you trust them to be able to fix their problems eventually.
They have taken the first step towards the problem being solved, and we can cut there.
In the last episode, they get knocked down a peg and kind of realize where they really are in the world, and it's okay. It's like now, I feel like when it ends, it's like, okay, well now we know who we are and what we have to do, and now we can start our band adventure for real.
Like, yeah,
and that's kind of what it feels like from the band perspective. But I agree with Aqua as far as like Nina's story. It ends in a kind of a satisfying place where she's mostly at peace with the main conflicts that were introduced in the series. Even if, there are kind of things that are going to go on probably forever, but it's not holding her back anymore, right?
And it's kind of like the thing with everyone, like, oh, Momoka is still going to be a coward sometimes. Like, oh, Tomo is still going to, like, not be able to properly express herself. Like, oh, Subaru is still going to, like, lie her way out of things she's uncomfortable with. But,
I love her.
It's okay. Like,
yeah. Sorry we couldn't give Rupa her own episode because
yes. So Yuki Hinata posted on Twitter as like, sorry I couldn't give Rupa her own episode, but just Nina was just being so obnoxious and taking up all of my attention.
Yeah. So
I mean, the thing is with Rupa that she also kind of doesn't need her own episode because she seems to be the most mature of the bunch, and like she has things going on, but she was already at that point where everyone else is now when she was introduced, right? Where she could like deal with the problems that are slightly alluded to, like the loss of her parents, like the fact that she is essentially an undocumented immigrant, like
something like that.
There's like a really dark thing going on there that the show sort of doesn't go into.
They kind of imply it and never explain any of it, right? But I agree. Yes, she's kind of already, she's the most mature of the group and already at the point where she's kind of at peace with her problems at the moment. But great show.
Yeah.
There's a question of the music.
Is the music any good?
This is a criticism I have of the show because I don't like the music in this show. And Aqua, you can feel free to disagree with me. Mm-hmm. I feel like the one thing kind of conflicting with the whole themes of the show is the fact that this is a multimedia project designed to sell, music.
To sell music.
Anime music specifically. It's just funny when like they're supposed to be like the underdog band, but they sound honestly just as slick and polished and commercial to me as Diamond Dust. And even beyond that, just as my personal preference, that I don't like the whole like fast weird time signature thing.
Yeah.
And especially the thing where they do a lot where they sing a lot of words really fast in a short amount of time, and I really don't like that. So I can't.
It really feels like a style of music that's written to show off rather than sound good.
That is because it is very much based on anime music and like doujin music, which is like, that is kind of like the tradition, many like elaborate arrangements, crazy time signatures, getting a lot of lyrics in. It is kind of like showing off. It is kind of flexing, like, it is the whole like, it's the whole like prog metal, we're the best band because we have songs that are 20 minutes long and
it's a little weird.
Time signature 200 times. Like,
Joe, I kind of want to add on to your point. Is that so? Clarification: I've not seen the whole series. I've seen about 6 episodes now. To me, there is a disconnect between the story they are trying to tell and like the fact that the sort of greater context surrounding the project, if that makes sense. So because like the whole story is that we are these outcast girls who are trying to form, this like down and dirty basement band,
and they're supposed to be, other than Momika, they're supposed to be like amateurs, right? Like, well, I guess
amateur doesn't mean bad.
I mean, not necessarily, because Rupa and Tomo are.
Yeah, okay. I guess only Nina and Subaru are supposed to be like real like beginners.
Whereas Subaru is like the sickest drummer in the universe.
Also, like, it's, for me at least, it's very hard to separate the story from the overarching thing, which is, this is basically an idol group. Like, you are dressing up an idol group in the clothes of like indie rock and punk, but this is, this project is just playing the playbook. Like,
and that I agree.
It a little difficult for me to kind of truly become attached. In some
I'm fine. I'm kind of fine just blocking all that part of it out, but it is it is something that you kind of have to, if you don't want to engage with that part of it, it's something you have to kind of not think about. But
and I don't think it completely ruins it for me, but kind of like there's sort of like that nagging edge.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that is why I wanted to talk about it, because I feel like that is one kind of, and I know exactly what you're saying, Zig. It's just like, I do feel like that is like the maybe one negative thing that I can think of in this.
I'm curious how the show stands up to the other show that we all dropped immediately, the jellyfish thing that has also been going on, right? I've seen people talk about it on social media. I'm like, oh yeah, that shit.
I feel like that is less, and that show is less like directly music based, right?
Yeah,
but
I think the general consensus seems to be that most people like both. Like,
sure, fine.
Yeah,
like the thing is, okay, so to come back on the music, a couple of things. First of all, I agree, but I do like some of the songs. Like, when you listen to them multiple times, listen to the full versions, there is a structure to them that I find quite intriguing and interesting. I will totally agree that it does not sound underground or rock and roll or punk in any way, at least not what measure of that kind of music we have, because I would say that in Japan, you do have many indie bands that do sound like that do have that slick, poppy, polished, idol-like sound. Like, there are underground indie idols, right? Like, of course, there is a more traditional indie music scene. Like, there's like a big hardcore punk scene in Japan, all that stuff that sounds more like what we would understand to be indie music. But there is definitely, like, you could have a quote-unquote indie scrappy upstart band in Japan that sounds like Togenashi Togeari. But like, the thing is, I think where this mostly annoys me is with Diamond Dust, not necessarily with Toge Toge. Because the thing with Diamond Dust is they are framed in the show as complete sellouts, as like, this is commercial pap, this is just the most mainstream garbage imaginable. But they also can't make them bad, because they want to sell Diamond Dust singles, right? So you can compare, like, if you go to Spotify and you compare the like version of Void by Diamond Dust versus the original version, or at least like the version that Nina and Momoka play at the end of the first episode, and it's like both of them are overproduced.
Right.
But the Diamond Dust version is so overproduced it becomes comical. There's like an entire fucking symphonic orchestra and shit like that.
Yeah.
So they just go out of their way to, in some way at least, make it obvious that Diamond Dust is supposed to be the more mainstream band of the two.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, I would agree. I would agree with you guys. I just think, I mean, this is what I've often called the Tenacious D problem, right? Like, you can't make a story about the greatest song ever written because you have to write the greatest song ever written.
Right.
But it wasn't the greatest song ever written. It was just a tribute.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
I mean,
that is always a problem with any music anime, and I don't think it's so much in this show because I don't think they were ever claiming that any of these songs are the greatest.
No, of course. But I mean more like,
or even good for that matter. But
you can claim in text
all you want
that a story is a certain thing, but then that means that the song has to be that thing, right? As in here, they claim that they're like a scrappy indie band, then the song has to reflect that, right? Like,
yeah, I think even just making Diamond Dust sound more different than the main girls band would have gone a long way in kind of.
I mean, what they should have done with Diamond Dust is they should have not had them play instruments and just
make them just straight up pure idol. Yeah. So anyway, to me, I mean, one last thing I'll say on that, like I did kind of notice, I felt like they gave perhaps an overly positive view of their agency / music label in the final stretch of like they kind of did they were very supportive despite their insane decisions they were making toward the end.
I mean, like there's a few sort of half-hearted swipes at the labels being heartless machines, but it's very much the do not bite the hand that feeds problem.
Yeah, by the time the girls themselves get signed, their agent is like very helpful in looking out for their own interest, even though they kind of like try to sneak in like she went behind their back thing or whatever. But and the producer guy they work with is really cool, and like they have no problems with the record label itself, right?
I mean, I think the thing they're going for is that like, and you can argue about this ideology as much as you want, but I think it's more like, the people in the system can still be, people who do it for the art and have good intentions, but it is the system itself that just.
And to be fair, there are
I am just too cynical to accept
to be
that.
fair,
I think the show is trying to be like, Miura-san is like genuinely,
and there are
cares about these girls and wants them to be successful, and so does the producer. Like,
there are smaller labels that you can work with that are a lot more accommodating too. But anyway, and don't they decide to drop at the end? Did I interpret that correctly? Like,
I mean, I'm not sure if they decide to drop out of the whole. If it's just like the Diamond Dust proposal that they drop out of, or if they just drop out of the entire label. Like,
that wasn't clear to me, but anyway, at
this point, like the definition of going indie is also so vague, because even like in Japan, like there are people who call themselves indie idols who are still like have a fucking massive company behind them doing all the same shit that the major labels do. Like, they're certainly not indie in the way that we would define indie, as in we record everything in our bedrooms and put it on SoundCloud. Like,
right. Well, one last thing I have to talk about, if you guys will indulge me. Nina finally gets her guitar in the final scene of the last episode for the final performance. And thankfully, they show the tag of the guitar in the shop in one of the episodes, so I did not have to hunt to find what guitar it was. But I learned some things with this one. She buys a G&L Tribute ASAT Classic. It's basically a Telecaster. I didn't know anything about this brand at all. And
this is like a Japanese band doing like weird custom limited edition versions of your traditional teles and strats and poles and stuff like that, right?
I was surprised what the answer was. So I'm surprised I didn't, because this is perhaps revealing that I don't know as much about guitars as I put on this podcast. But
the thing is, you know a lot about guitars that are popular in America, like Japan has its own industry.
This is not a Japanese company. This is so G&L.
Oh, okay.
G&L.
I've heard of G&L.
I've learned something today. G&L is the company that Leo Fender created after he had left Fender. And so for the remainder of Leo Fender's life, the real Telecasters and Stratocasters, some might say, were being made by G&L because that's the company Leo Fender worked for. So as a little history lesson, Leo Fender got sick and decided to sell Fender in the 60s to CBS, the broadcasting company, which apparently everyone says they did a terrible job with their run of it. Everybody always wants a pre-CBS Fender, if you ever hear that. And but he eventually recovered, and instead of joining back up with Fender, he started another small company with a friend to continue making Telecasters and Stratocasters. Of course, he couldn't call them Telecasters and Stratocasters, but if you look at them, that is what they are. And I noticed G&L is very, very prominently says on their website many times that Leo Fender claims that these were the best guitars that he ever made. So, and again, if anybody doesn't know who Leo Fender is, it's Fender Guitars. He's the guy. he is the electric guitar guy.
Mr. Guitar.
So I'm like, this is. I could definitely see how this would be like a real hipster guitar where it's like, well, you see if you want a real Telecaster, you go buy one from G&L because those were the best ones that they were, So
what you're saying is already this is an insanely specialized and expensive instrument for your first guitar.
Not really. So I'll admit I did not have time to actually research what the difference is. I mean, obviously the pickups and stuff are going to be different, right? The electronics. Custom. I mean, they look exactly the same, but the prices are about the same. And actually the one that Nina bought, this is also very common with guitar companies. You have your American made ones that are like the expensive ones, and then you have ones that are made in either Asia or Mexico that are less expensive, even though they're kind of exactly the same.
Yep.
They have brands like Epiphone for stuff.
No, but
but they'll have ones that say Fender. Right. It'll still say Fender on the headstock, but they'll be made in like Mexico or Japan or whatever.
Gotcha.
And this is it's Asian made, so it could be anywhere in like, I think this might be Southeast Asia mostly.
China. Oh yeah.
So Nina bought the Asian made one, which they go only for $600 about.
Okay, yeah, sure. That's a perfectly reasonable price for a first guitar.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised. The American made ones are about the same as a normal Telecaster,
so about $2,000, $3,000.
Starting in the like $1,600-$1,700 range, right? So, I kind of want one. I love Telecasters.
The funny thing is, like, when you compare all the girls band anime and the instruments that they play, the K-On! Girls all play like super classic but high-end stuff. The girls band Cry Girls all play like weird obscure hipster stuff. Watching the rock girls just play like the first like guitar you can buy at like Walmart.
Well, I think Rupa plays an SG bass, which is weird, right? Doesn't she have an SG bass? Yeah,
I've heard people dunking on her because those basses are apparently like pretty bad.
But it is like just a straight up Gibson.
Yeah, it's just like
it's not like a standard company or something.
Gibson SG bass.
Yeah. But Nina and so Momika's the one with the really weird guitar is basically what we're getting at.
I've seen some cosplays of her. And I'm like, where did you get that guitar?
Did they get the real one, or they just have a blue Jazz Master?
I'm assuming it's just a blue Jazz Master.
Okay,
then,
yeah. Like you can buy like a $200 knockoff Jazz Master body and then do it up. If you're not playing it, it doesn't matter.
So the Psyched Rhythm, the company that make Momo's guitar, will be re-releasing that guitar because of the anime. Apparently, they only made like 4 of them.
Yes.
Originally,
that guitar will now just forever be known as the Momoka.
And just so they are
just like how you can get like the Van Halen.
They're going to re-release it with some minor changes because they still want the original one to be unique because their whole thing is they make the guitar a very limited run.
Yeah, they're coach built basically.
Anyway, that's probably more guitar talk than our audience ever wanted to hear. But I had to get that.
Now we must institute a new like segment every podcast has Gel bought the girls band Cry.
The guitar.
I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna do some research. I want to know, because I'm not just gonna buy it for the sake of buying it. I want to know if, is what the deal is with it.
Yeah, no, this is good. Now I can convince my dad to listen to this.
But I really like Telecasters in my guitar. I really like Telecasters. So, all right. I think we're finally done with Girls Band Cry. All right. I'm the only one left on Tonari no Yokai-san. This show's wild, man.
How's that going?
So I've heard.
So I don't. If you've been listening to myself and Artemis and G talk about the show, we've already said it's kind of all over the place. So I don't think that's too much of a shock. And that's both in just plot things randomly happening and also in tone. So sometimes you'll get very deadly serious moments, and then it's next scenes back to hanging out with my yokai buddies, right? And yeah, that's kind of, they stick to their guns to the very end with this. We get they cover the important plot points in the final stretch, which are, there was the question of, there was the main little girl who's kind of one of the main characters. What happened to her? Well, it's her whole family. What happened to the dad? There's some implication that his spirit is lurking around somewhere, but nobody can quite figure it out. And they finally resolve that in this horrible, fate worse than death, arguably, way, where they discovered he was like eaten up by this shadow, and he's like desperately wants to just see his family one more time, and then his like soul is transformed into this yokai. I forget what it's like, the tiny little person yokai. I forget what they're called.
Oh, those guys, yeah.
Yeah, but he will never have any memories of his family again, which honestly, I feel like he would have been better off just dying. The family would have been at more peace, but now they have this little yokai dude living in their house that represents their father that doesn't remember them at all or can't even talk. And, we end, one episode with the main girl just sobbing uncontrollably because now she has to accept that her father is gone forever. And then the next episode starts, hey, the space-time police are back. Let's go see what they're doing.
Time, Bokan.
And it's one of the little boys is like, oh man, the space-time police are so cool. And it's just so much whiplash in this show. And even that, we're hanging out with that, with the space-time police. And so that was the other major plot point, is they keep talking about these like rifts in space-time, naturally. And it's implied that the yokai are in this world because like the normal human world that we know and some other dimension collided and permanently mixed together or something. But it's possible that, the barrier around the world could break and everything gets ripped apart, right? Which is, not ominous at all, right? And so yes, once again, our hanging out with our yokai buddies. We go to the city with, if you guys recall the living Volkswagen guy.
Yes. Who had to get his own driver's license.
Yeah, who's just a guy with a car. He's just a guy with a car for a head, and then he can actually turn into a car. So him and Buchio, who's like the old cat that turned into a Nekomata, the other main character, and this little boy are going to the city because Buchio's got a job to do with the Demon King that hired him, which you remember that from back earlier episodes. And everyone's having a good time. We're going to go get some like barbecue or something later for dinner. And then just like a hole tears through the sky and demons start dropping down and murdering people.
Oh, okay.
for the final stretch. They call them Oni eventually, but they just start dropping down from the sky. Japan is closed off from the rest of the world. And
that's never happened before.
Space-time has there's been a hole torn in it, and there's just people getting murdered in the streets. There's one part where like the Volkswagen guy is trying to drive away, and the kid and Buchio are like in the back seat, and they're like, I can't remember the kid's name, but they're like, "Oh no, don't look!" and they cover his eyes, and you just see them covering his eyes as you hear people screaming and like getting violently murdered in the background.
You know, it's the finale of Blood Sea. Like,
and I'm like, what is even going on? And I think this is all leading up to perhaps my biggest problem with the show, and a lot of people have said this, is everything just wraps up so neatly and quickly. Like, at some point, I don't even remember what, I think the space-time people do something to close the rift or whatever.
Sure.
And, you know,
it's always a good sign when you don't exactly know what happened in the finale.
Yeah, the Oni go away, and they're like, oh, okay, so I forgot this part that was important. Once the space-time rift is open, yes, the yokai world is leaking out, so all the yokai buddies are dying these intense dramatic deaths. The worst being Wagon Kun, the Volkswagen, is like, oh yeah, you guys go on ahead, I'll be right there with you. And then they come back out to the street, he's just a car now.
Yep.
Yeah,
no,
that was the most dramatic of all of them.
One.
But all our yokai buddies, including Jiro, the Crow Tengu guy, who's like the main yokai guy, he disappears off into the wind. Everyone is sobbing uncontrollably, and then actually, sorry, you know what? It's not the space-time. The Demon King guy is like, oh, I finally have all my powers back. I can try to fix things, and the three main kids have to wish, make a wish or whatever, and everything comes back to normal like within 30 seconds, as if nothing had happened.
This seems extremely comic booky. Like, in this issue, we do
right,
random slice of life comedy thing. In this issue, Doctor Doom kills everyone, but it's okay. We have the time reset stone. Like,
I guess to their credit, they don't go as far as like bringing their dad back and all that. And they kind of have a throwaway line, like there's like a news reporter saying, "Oh yeah, all the yokai came back, but all those people that got murdered, yeah, they're dead." That does not. They couldn't reverse that part of it. Wow, but all the yokai are fine. But all those people that got murdered by the Oni, yeah, they're dead. So it was just a very weird, abrupt ending. And I don't know. I continue to have a soft spot in my heart for the show because it's so, I don't know. It's very likable. Like, the characters are very likable. It's very charming. But the plot is such a hot mess. It just jumps all over the place, and things get wrapped up so quickly that's kind of hard to recommend. I was kind of done with it by the time we got to like the last 2 or 3 episodes. So a little disappointing, unfortunately, because I was
gonna say, you guys were really on that train for like the first half dozen.
It had a very strong first couple episodes, I thought, and I was really hoping this was going to be good, and it was fine. I think I'm still like net positive on it, but I no longer feel like I'm gonna be like telling people to go watch this at this point.
Fully live up to its potential.
Yeah, never quite got there, unfortunately. But thankfully, I picked up Girls Band Cry in the meantime, and that filled the hole in my heart. But yeah, it's a little disappointing.
Alas.
All right.
I mean, that's just like the story of like 70% of the shows we watch at this podcast.
I mean, yeah.
Well,
one
show that did not disappoint us
is
Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon, if you will.
Yes.
I feel like this ended like a month ago, but
I know.
Yeah.
Right?
We have not actually talked about because we had our preview show last time, and then we missed a week.
That's right.
I was out a week, so it probably has been a long time, but we actually have not had an opportunity to talk about the last couple episodes of Dungeon Meshi. So
I'm interested to hear what the non-manga readers have thought about the show.
I mean, do you mean overall or specifically the last couple of episodes?
Let's go with yes.
Okay. I think so. I'll start. Like, I think overall it's a terrific show. It's funny, it's clever, it's heartwarming, it looks great, it sounds great. I think the ending suffered a little bit from the obvious knowledge that it was going to get a second season. It felt like the structure broke down a little. The last couple of episodes felt a little bit bitty, a little bit sort of all over the shop. Granted, there's like the Senshi plotline and stuff, but I think that the last couple of episodes definitely felt a little bit lacking the kind of very core narrative thrust that especially the first half had, and that's not to, cast shade on the overall quality of the show, which, like I said, was fantastic. It just felt a little bit that they were sort of not padding, but sort of casting about a little, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we have 3 episodes left to fill. I mean, they did have one kind of solid plot line to hang on to, which was we got some of Senshi's backstory, right? And with the whole thing with the
Senshi a cannibal plotline.
Yes, the Senshi a cannibal arc.
Because it's always been he's sort of had a mystery to him this whole time of what the hell is this guy doing here?
Yeah,
why does he know so much about monsters? How did he get here?
I think, before we head into the specific discussion to sort of address Zeke's criticism, I think, the thing with Dungeon Meshi is, it is structured in, a way where it's, it starts with a bunch of, bitty, episodic, fun adventures, then it goes into the plot zone, and then you have this long bit where it's sort of, establishes a bunch of things and has to put everything in position for the second major arc.
Right.
And then it sort of mimics that structure of that first arc again. And the thing is, with the number of episodes that this adaptation got, we sort of end right at the end of that transition period as the show goes back into its second arc.
Which
is
even
an unfortunate fact, right?
Even somebody like me who has not read the manga can tell that kind of it is the deep breath before the plunge, But I can only judge what's in front of me, and what's in front of me is a series which sort of ends a little bit all over the shop. And I'm sure when the next 26 episodes or whatever drops, and it is viewed as one continuous story, that kind of valley in the story might make a little more sense. But as it is as an incomplete 26 episode bit, it does kind of feel like they let off the gas pedal a little for the last couple of episodes.
Yeah. But I don't. It's funny. As much as I love the show, I always feel like I don't have a lot to say about it.
It's just good. It just kind of speaks for itself.
It has the Spy Family problem of being just generically good.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of it is just the experience of hanging out with these characters and stuff. It was good. Just going back to addressing Senshi's backstory, I think we've kind of got. I guess we haven't learned too much about Chilchuck yet, right? But we've kind of got to know the party pretty well.
Also, the thing with Chilchuck is that he's kind of just a guy. That's his thing.
Right. We've seen little bits here and there, but
we get the bit where he's like, Senshi, I have 3 daughters, and
you're like, what? Yeah.
He's just a family man. He has 3 daughters. He does this for a living. He started a union.
He's an adventurer. This is what he does.
Consummate professional.
Yeah. I love the new plan of, well, what if we just eat Fallon?
What if we just eat the dragon bits and leave?
But only the dragon parts. It should be fine, right, guys? Then it can't. And all we need to do. Is go find the White Lion, stop the Mad Wizard, and and then we eat the dragon parts off Fallon. It's a great plan.
Profit
plan.
Laios is a bit too enthusiastic about eating his sister, honestly.
Well,
but she's such a cool monster.
Marcel
is happy to eat Fallon, though, as we all know.
Yes, of course. Just need to pause for a moment on that one. All right, so
pause for applause.
Yeah. I will say, and I have expressed this concern in previous episodes. ending on seeing our new elf friends entering the dungeon.
Yes, I thought that was a really funny spot to end, knowing what I know, but for some of the reasons that you are upset about it, right?
Let's say peering into the dungeon and reminding me, oh right, they introduced this whole new plot element earlier that we haven't done anything with yet. Reminded me of some of my concerns that I had before, where it's like, I don't want more characters now. I don't want
entirely understandable concerns.
Yeah, so that continues to kind of be a red flag for me going into season 2.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know what else to say, because we are going to be resuming next. Did they confirm it's next season?
No, I have not confirmed any air date.
Oh, I'm confusing this with something else. I know it's not next season, summer 2024, but at some point, I
can imagine they'll need some time for this. They just came off of 24 episodes.
Yeah. Give it a couple weeks. We'll see if they announce it when at Anime Expo or something.
Yeah.
But it'll happen.
We know it's definitely happening
soonish.
Yeah. So it's we'll be able to kind of pick it up from there. But I guess some overall closing thoughts. I did really, really love the show. It's such a great main cast, the main party. I love them all. They did such a good job of developing the relationships between them and the chemistry, and their whole dynamic of how they've come to be dependent on each other was really well done.
It's one of the best matches of a studio and the material.
That's what I was about to ask Bakuage as the other manga reader. I feel like, for me at least, at the beginning when it was announced, I was like, is this matchup gonna work?
The thing is, Ryoko Kui is an artist who is more than anything acclaimed for her art style and her ability to especially make characters look very distinctive from one another while still maintaining a coherence in art style. I think she is among the best artists in that regard, next to a Naoki or something.
I'm most impressed by her storytelling, but these are intertwined.
I'm talking about the art, as an artist, right? But the thing where I'm going is I could imagine people seeing that and then Trigger, who are a studio known for having a very distinct, bespoke style, and sort of fitting things into that pattern. And I think they reached a pretty nice compromise here, in that you have an art style that is very faithful to Kui's art style, while also being a bit more stretchy, a bit more cartoonish, a bit more triggerish. And you have they alter between, they're not afraid to make episodes with very distinctive styles, very directors with a very distinctive vision, art directors who are willing to sort of throw established character designs out of the window, do something a bit more loose, a bit more stretchy.
Right. Anytime Michio Kano is on storyboards and such, and
everyone suddenly looks way more Little Witch Academia-ish. But I think they strike a pretty good balance, and they have balanced out their more faithful animation directors and their more zanier animation directors. They have assigned episodes well based on what is required in this context. So it, more than anything, it shows and it's kind of weird that we're still having this conversation.
I know, right?
But it's more than anything, this shows that Trigger are more than just the Imaishi studio.
I know, right? They
have something they already proved with Dynazenon, and they already proved with Cyberpunk, and But yes, once again, they have proven that they are more than just the guys who did Kill la Kill.
I will just point out that Cyberpunk was
Imaishi.
Yeah, was Imaishi. Yeah. But that's a thing. With the Imaishi show,
the style,
the super over the top American inspired, stretchy, that kind of stuff, right? It's like, but yes, Cyberpunk was, of course, an Imaishi joint, where he once again proved that Imaishi is more than just the sex and violence with max speed guy. Like,
at any rate, but yes, so it is somewhat heartening to hear you say, Zig, that like, it was a good match, right? Because that was something I was worried about.
I mean, and I can understand that because, I think that part of the charm of it is its sort of devotion to, and don't take this the wrong way, but sort of old-fashioned swashbuckling and old-fashioned jokes, and
it's a cartoon-ass cartoon.
Yeah, and I think what Trigger did was that they sympathetically deployed their skills when it was necessary and when they thought it would be either most funniest or most exciting. Yeah. And, I think that their sense of comic timing really helped push some of the gags over the top. And so I think that's the stuff that really succeeded, because, I mean, on a technical level, it's very good, but I think most studios can manage good technical animation if you give them, like, enough time and enough money. I think what Trigger really brought to it was, like, a sense of swagger, a sense of panache that they can really deliver on when they have the chance.
I do think other studios could have made perhaps equally good adaptation. Not all studios, but I'm very happy that this is the one we got, right?
The other one I might have suggested would be Madhouse, probably.
What if this and Free Run got swapped?
Right. The thing is, like, Free Run was so lavish and such that, like, I don't know that it would really fit the same way. And it's like, it's not like Dungeon Meshi like looked like that all the time. It was not a terribly lavish or lavishly produced show, I don't feel.
I mean, it obeyed the basic Trigger rule. It's more funny the fewer frames there are. So.
And so... Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't have made that trade.
Yeah.
I mean, also... Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Free Run would have been just as good, but Dungeon Meshi would have been worse.
Right.
Like,
I think this is also an interesting thing to look at as broadly. We don't care about when Supernatural Files became commonplace. Nobody cares about that shit. And so, broadly, I know there's Gridman, which is Wave Run Hand. This is broadly Trigger's first, like, straight up adaptation, right? Mostly everything else has been original.
This is at least their first adaptation that is also like
that is like a norm.
That
like
is also
a quote-unquote normal.
Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, like, you could argue Cyberpunk Edge Runners is an adaptation as well, but not in the same way.
I would not. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It is an adaptation. I wrote about this last year.
Okay. Sure.
It is an adaptation, but it's not like a direct adaptation like we think of when someone says...
It is an adaptation in that it is a script that came from outside of the studio because it was written by one of the people from CD Projekt Red. But it's also like, it's not an adaptation because they're not directly like translating the plots.
It's like a manga adaptation often practically uses the manga pages as a storyboard, right?
Yeah.
And so it was fun to me to see that Trigger can both adapt something that has existing and pacing, but while also putting in their own verve to it, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I think the key difference between this and a Cyberpunk, or when supernatural battles become commonplace, is that here it was important for Trigger to preserve the style and presentation of the original manga.
Yes,
and they had to adapt in a sympathetic way that still, that they could not just throw out everything and, make it into a Trigger show, as we were saying. And that, I think, is another sign of their maturity as a studio, that they were able to work within the very strict confines of a given style, a given sort of art presentation, and produce something that is both unmistakably their work and also still Dungeon Meshi.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, turns out it's a good show.
Yep. And I'm looking forward to it coming back whenever it does. So Dungeon Meshi.
Dungeon Meshi.
All right. So let's move on to one more anime that's in a bit of a weird place.
Yeah.
This is Dead Demons DeDeDeDe Destruction. We did talk about a couple of weeks ago, or probably months ago now at this point, when episode 0 came out.
Yeah.
I don't remember if we fully understood what episode 0 was at that point, because Aqua, I don't think you were on.
No,
and you're
I
most
was
familiar
not.
with this.
Yes. So to recap, they did an episode 0.
Yes.
Which was not a part of the movie duology. That this is essentially just a cut-up version of.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So they made 2 movies based on the manga. And now we here in the West are getting a 18-episode version of that movie that is made of footage from the movie plus some extra added footage.
And Aqua, correct?
Episode 0 was not part of the original movies, but it was in the manga. It is the start of the final volume of the manga.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not how the manga starts.
No, Zig, you've not watched episode 0, correct?
That is correct. On Aquagage's suggestion, I did not watch episode 0.
So
I do know
interesting to me, right?
I
also
know one or two things about it via osmosis. I know that it is set. That it is set in the future of the story, so to speak. That's about it.
So here's just a little bit more on that real quick. I find it fascinating because I know we talked about episode 0, so I know what happens in episode 0.
Yeah.
And I watched episode 1. I did skip episode 0 based on what we talked about, my own research. And if you go on Crunchyroll to watch it, literally the first thing that comes up is, please do not watch episode 0. If you're
That's interesting to me because I feel like, as somebody who has only seen watched the anime right across like 3 or 4 episodes, I feel like the dread that like a sense of dread that hangs in the air.
So here's my thing.
Well, that's the thing. Sorry, can I interrupt? I think I agree with you, Hiro. I think it's a good, strong, artistically justifiable move to do that episode 0. The reason why I kind of cheated, like the reason why I told Zig not to watch episode 0,
right,
is because I didn't want him to judge the show based on episode 0.
It is very different from what the main show has turned out to be, which is Aquagage's catnip.
Yeah.
I will say that I do not need an episode 0 to instill me with a lingering sense of dread watching this show.
Right.
Yeah.
It absolutely still exists because the plot is an alien ship has arrived and is hanging in the air above Tokyo, and everyone's fucking losing it. Yes. The Americans tried to bomb it, which caused a lot of big problems on August 31st.
I guess that was that was the point I was trying to get to with, like, did they feel like they had to do the episode 0 to grab people's attention? Because having only watched episode 1, I feel like there was plenty to grab your attention in there. Like, that was like the moment when I think the first time you actually like see anything is actually see things on screen that are weird is like I think the girls are like on the roof and then they look over and see like, you know, the spaceship or whatever. And it's like, oh, there's stuff going on here, right? And I guess did they not have enough faith? Did they not have enough faith that was going to be like enough to grab people or something? I don't know. But
to me, it's like it's the storytelling difference to me of like, is this a slice of life show where they are just hanging out while the alien invasion is happening? And the answer to that is yes. But then there's the other thing of, we're having a slice of life show when we know that the slide is truly inevitable, right? As opposed to just, teehee, something wacky and scary is happening over there and we're not going to deal with it. Right? Like, we know that they will have to deal with it. Land upon them. Go ahead.
Can I just blame this on Oshinoko? Hitting us with the like.
No, if you're gonna blame anyone, blame Fate.
Well, I'm just thinking of like...
I think the reason for this is really quite simple. They had the movies, now they have the TV version. They promised you're gonna get stuff from the TV version that you didn't get in the movies, and they wanted to deliver on that.
Sure.
I think that's it. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like, I will give you my opinion on this show so far, which is complicated, which I think that there's some really interesting stuff going on, particularly Aqua and I watched episode 5 the other day, and that significantly changes a great deal of the foundational assumptions that you make about the story, and I can't really say much more than that. I think that I have a really complicated relationship with Inio Asano's work.
Right.
And I kind of am terrified of watching this show because, again, I do not need to have seen any sort of flash forward to know that extremely bad things will happen, and they will probably happen in a ruinously emotional way. And and
I've only seen up to episode 4.
I will say that episode 5 is not that. It is it is interesting, but in an entirely, different way.
Right.
I think that it's Asano is really good at like breathing believably banal life into his characters, if that makes sense. They read as very realistic warts and all personalities. And I think that, granted, there's a certain amount of stylization. I think that has been the strength of this show so far, and I think that it's been done really well. The problem is I'm not entirely sure what the story is going to cash that check in for, and I fully admit that this is just a me problem, but I'm not entirely sure. I am nervous about what this show is going to end up saying about its characters.
Zig, is it kind of like, so for just from my perspective, I've only watched episode 1. I haven't had time to watch more of it, but so I don't really know much, and I vaguely know what happens in episode 0. But is it like me with Made in Abyss, where like I don't want to take on that weight for no reason, basically?
I think there's a certain. I mean, like I should probably just say, like, I read Goodnight Pun Pun, which is Asano's most famous work, while I was deeply clinically depressed, and that's not a good thing to do. And ever since then, I have sort of instinctively recoiled from the sight of his work. I don't think it's like Made in Abyss, because I think that Made in Abyss is a much sort of...
It's more detached from reality, right? I mean, it's like...
It's also more distasteful. Like, I never feel that Asano is brutalizing his characters for kicks, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And also, like, the things that happen in Asano's work are generally not explicit violence or degradation in the same way.
Made in Abyss is more like visceral horror, whereas Asano is psychological horror.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that...
I mean, it's still taking on emotional baggage, and to what end?
Yeah, I think at the moment the show is really, really good at like building this fantastically weird puzzle box, and I think I'm always a little wary of that kind of storytelling, because you really have to have something at the center of the puzzle which is worth all the effort, or you get lost, where you are just like mystery into like false revelation into false revelation. And I guess, and this is not a criticism of the show, I do not know what it is trying to say yet. And that's interesting, right? That's interesting because, like, you don't often go into a work without being able to spot, a familiar skeleton to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is fascinating to me. It also makes me a little bit nervous for the reasons I've just said.
Yeah.
Ira, what do you how are you feeling about it?
I'm not sure. I think I'm similarly just like, I don't know where this is supposed to be going. Because I think Ontan being some wacky high school girl only takes me so far. I'm about one step away from being like, get this girl the hell out of here. She's insane, right? Like,
you should watch episode.
Yes. And it's like, I know that you in particular love like bunch of weird girls or having weird conversations, right?
Yes,
type stuff.
yes.
Not to typecast.
No. I mean, yes. I mean, this is very much a show that is in line with things that I like. You can say that. Yeah.
I think that they do pick around the edge of that presentation in episode 4, where, spoiler alert, one of the girls is killed, and we see everyone react to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they show enough in that there for me to be like, oh, right, there's a reason behind this facade. I think it's very interesting the way they show the various people reacting in various ways.
I just find the facade like exhausting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which may be intentional, but all of her friends are like all the other, and like, yes, there was a bit of that in episode 4, right? Where everyone's like, okay, chill a little bit. And she's like, no, I'm doing this on purpose. But I don't know, man. Like, yeah, where's this supposed to be going? I've watched episode 0. I think about episode 0, and I think about where the show is right now, and I'm like, what is this supposed to be leading up to?
I think the thing is, like, it is less of a character journey and more of like a broad social satire kind of thing,
right?
Because at this point the show is still very focused, but like at some point it will broaden its perspective to many more characters of like different ages and backgrounds, and
how they are reacting to this situation. Right?
Yeah, and the central idea of the show is just like, wow, humans, we sure are like completely incapable of dealing with like this kind of crisis that would like require us to come together and set aside our petty human like problems.
Right.
But we simply cannot do that. Like, and it's that kind of show of like, it criticizes humanity, but it's also like empathetic in a certain way of like, well, of course, there are aliens in the air, and like, oh, the prime minister is only concerned about how this will like
and I mean like
affect his approval ratings,
and the kids at school, like, they are dealing with fucking exams. They're dealing with whether they want to fuck the teacher. They're dealing with their horrible, creepy brother who is an internet sock puppet man, like,
but also might be the smartest person in the show. It's I
don't know, but
I mean, Ontan's brother is basically like the internet equivalent of the dude from The Big Lebowski, like this completely like useless piece of shit.
He's like he reminds me of. And this is a callback of the hacker guy in Eden of the East.
Oh,
who figures everything out and finally leaves his room to tell everybody that he's figured out the plot, and then gets hit by a car immediately.
Do we need to tell the kids what Eden of the East is?
No, right?
It's the one with the Oasis opening.
Yeah,
it's the one with the Johnnies.
Yeah. At any rate, go ahead.
The thing about that character in particular, I think, is interesting is, firstly, I think it's a broad self-parody because Asano is fairly self-aware and he is a big otaku, but also like the dude was clearly like a golden child. Like we see, like when we see some more of him in flashback, he is like ace athlete, captain of the athletic team, like straight A student, and something happened to him, like some trauma.
Right, and I mean they have implied that it has to do with like when her mother passed, right? Like And it's fine. I mean, I can only abide by we're having wacky conversations and whatnot for so long, right?
It's the kind of show where it's like I get the feeling that like if it's not on your particular frequency, it's something that you can like experience and see and be like, yeah, this is good. But like you can't really. It might come across as very distant in a way.
I think that's kind of where I am at the moment.
Right.
You know, I'm looking at this, and I think there are some parts which are wonderful. I think there are some parts which I'm not such a big fan of, and overall, like I find it fascinating to observe from a distance, but kind of like dispassionately, like a puzzle or an exhibition. You know, I do not love it yet. I don't. I don't think I think I will. There has not been a moment which has put me on the hook.
I'm not like as fascinated by this world and curious about things as I was with, say, Heavenly Delusion, right? I'm kind of like I've kind of just settled into this show is about people dealing with their mundane problems while extraordinary things are happening in the background, and they just gotta have to deal with that shit because what is a teenager gonna do about the alien invasion? And that's just sort of where I'm at with it, right? I'm like, okay, I see what the thrust of this is as of right now.
That's like, and I think that is kind of like what they're going for.
Right. Are you saying they're trying to lull me into a false sense of security about what kind of show this
is? I wouldn't even say that. I think it is more like... I think it is almost... Because, like... If you see it in the broader perspective of Asano's work,
right? I'm not terribly familiar with Asano's work.
Like you can sort of split like his current manga, Mujina Into the Deep, is also very similar to this in that it is this sort of like here's a situation like what if the world was like this, and we're going to have a bunch of different characters from all kind of walks of life. Experiencing that situation.
The world was like this,
and it's like, and there's like elements of social satire. There are elements of like slice of life, comedy, drama. It's like, and even that stuff was even in Pun Pun, but in Goodnight Pun Pun, you still had the central arc of like the coming of age of this central character.
I mean, the humor was so black it was
right. But it had like these satirical elements.
Yeah, I mean, it had the weird cult stuff.
Yeah, it had the exact same thing of like, yo, there's ill shit going down, but people don't really notice it because they're too busy with their own like problems. And I think that Asano may have sort of found that to be his thing because he like maybe doesn't want to do the horribly traumatizing coming of age Bildungsroman elements anymore.
You only have one of those in you,
right? And he like sort of splits these off into like shorter stories. Maybe like Downfall was one of those he did recently, which was still very much like that like bleak character focused semi-autobiographical thing, but that was a shorter series, right? And I think for his long form series he's more focused on that dramedy, slice of life, social satire hybrid thing that has kind of become his thing now.
Yeah, I mean,
perhaps like as a sort of self-defense mechanism even.
I mean, his strength has always been that he writes very believable, relatable characters, and I think part of the fascinating parts of his work is how he often positions them in truly unusual situations rather than just writing quote unquote regular slice of life. Is that he chooses to like place his characters into these very far out, bizarre circumstances.
I mean, it's a term that's been tossed around before. It's hyper real, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like this is a classic example of magical realism. But,
it's an exaggerated situation, but the way people who are in that situation act is relatable and human.
Right.
Yeah, I am intrigued, you know, I'm fascinated. But as I said, I don't think that fascination is out of love. Yeah, I think it is out of a more academic interest.
I mean, let me tell you about the historical genre of magical realism, because this is how most people react to it.
Yeah,
right. I suppose I feel a bit similarly to the characters in the sense of this is happening over there, but I'm like, cool, that's happening over there. I've got my own problems.
Yeah.
This is not real. I'm not really hooked. Yeah.
Oh, you see, it's meta.
Aqua, real quick. Aside from the episode 0 decision, has this been a pretty straightforward adaptation from your perspective, or
from my perspective,
or what do you think of the adaptation?
I can't say I remember the manga, or like at least these early points, well enough. I get the feeling they are focusing more on Karode and Ontan, and like leaving out some stuff that focuses on other characters, but I may be completely incorrect about that. So
has it been a while since you read it?
It has been a while, and also my memory is like infamously terrible.
I understand. I understand.
Yes.
There were shows on this list that I didn't remember what happened the last episode that I watched. So yeah.
But,
all right.
I mean, overall, I would say this is an excellent adaptation. Visually very good, musically very good, direction excellent. Even the voice acting, which is like, because Karode and Ontan are voiced by people who don't really have much of acting experience. Like
that's always interesting.
Karode is voiced by Lila Zikula, who is the vocalist of Yoasobi. And
that's interesting.
Ontan is voiced by Ano, who is like a well-known like alternative idol, kind of like wacky otaku idol kind of thing. But they do a really good job, and like there's good original music. Like many of the songs that feature in the show are also written by Inio Asano himself.
Sure.
So lots of people putting a lot of effort into this. It's written by Reiko Yoshida. There's a lot of art direction by famous like Twitter artist Ilya Kushinov.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that name in the credits and went, oh yeah, that dude. That guy's been around a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's like seeing Toby Fox in the Pokemon credits moment. Okay, I know that guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, this show was kind of in a weird spot as of recording. We're 5 episodes in.
I get the feeling no one is paying attention to this show. Crunchyroll is doing a terrible job marketing it.
They're doing a terrible job subbing it too.
Yes, that's the thing. This is dub titles only, and there's a lot of text on screen that Crunchyroll does not sub. Luckily, there are certain ways to get a version that translates all the text on screen and typesets it excellently.
Okay. Yeah, but you can pick up the manga down at the
GLORIO blog does not endorse piracy.
We're back to flying to Japan every week.
You can watch this after when you fly to Japan to watch girls band cry. You can watch this afterwards.
Yeah, and then translate the text on screen with your academic knowledge of Japanese.
Yes.
I will say that the first movie of this was playing while I was in Japan, and I was very tempted to go and watch it, even though I would not have understood anything, just so I could say that I'd gone and watched it. But,
this does feel like a show you should probably get subtitles.
Yes.
But, yeah. All right.
See, well, I could have gone and watched the Gundam Seed movie, and I would have understood that exactly as well without knowing what anybody said.
Yes.
Hey, this is complete gibberish, so just like Gundam Seed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll have plenty of time to keep talking about the show later because there's quite a bit more to go. But
indeed.
All right. Well, this is a rare event that I have all 3 of you here.
A rare encounter.
A rare encounter. Our 3 Tokusatsu watchers that you have assembled together.
Takeover.
I didn't really plan out this transition well, but I'm like, can I do something with like a team that combines into something? I don't know, man.
Like many Super Sentai shows that begin with 3 characters.
What color Rangers is each of you?
The Righteous Fury, GLORIO Red.
Doesn't Red go last?
Damn.
No, he goes first.
No, you're right.
The bit's ruined, but yeah, do you guys want to fit in a few minutes of Toku takeover here while we have
what I'll say, because I don't get to talk about Tokusatsu on the normal podcast most of the time. The adage holds true: Kamen Rider and Super Sentai cannot be good simultaneously.
No!
Yeah.
So what happened?
Well, the new Super Sentai started, as we talked about, like a couple of months back, and almost immediately Kamen Rider became bad.
Yeah. We all love Keiichi Hasegawa, writer of Rage of Homogenesis, Gridman, Dynazenon. He has not written an episode of that show for like 2 or 3 months. I don't know what the hell happened.
Considering he's meant to be the head writer is extremely concerning.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
So the thing is with Kamen Rider Gotchard is like Hasegawa has vanished. Like he has not been credited for a single episode in months. Most of it is being done by either the guy who has been co-writing the show since the beginning, I think, or Akiko Inoue, who was like an episode writer who mostly did like goofy comedy episodes that were pretty cool, but who is also the daughter of Toshiki Inoue, a famous / infamous writer in the Toku community. So these two are now running the show, whereas Hasegawa has disappeared. And you notice that the show has sort of completely lost its direction. Like, this is not atypical for Kamen Rider in this day and age, because the show is so subject to all sorts of corporate mandates. Constantly has to be rewritten on the fly to incorporate whatever whim the suits at Toei have this time. But it is becoming especially egregious here in Gotchard, because you just notice that all of the subtlety that Hasegawa brought to the table is also gone. So you have the standard deterioration that affects pretty much every Kamen Rider show nowadays, combined with the deterioration that comes with firing your main writer.
or whatever they're doing with him, locking him in a closet.
So the thing is, like, it's become a big roller coaster. Like, the thing
it's become broad and wacky in the way that, like, the very worst televised tokusatsu is. Like, it's become crazy, but, like...
Where they have, like, a new idea every week. Like, oh, like, here are these new villains. Oh, no, they're defeated. Oh, the old villain is back. Oh, now he's defeated, too. No, this guy's the villain.
We spent a fucking month on the Ho Kaguya Quartz crossover bullshit.
So the thing that sort of signed was like the harbinger of doom for this show was like a crossover they did like a month ago, I think, was like 4 episodes in a row featuring Kamen Rider Legend. Now, Kamen Rider Legend is not a character in this show. He like was introduced in a spin-off, like a web spin-off, as like basically the replacement for Kamen Rider Decade, and Kamen Rider Decade is like the anniversary show guy. You know, he's like the guy who can transform into all the old riders who they always bring out whenever there's something to celebrate. Yeah. So at some point, Masahiro Inoue, the man who plays Decade, who has been a dedicated fan for his entire life, who has always come back to do whatever they need him to do, but at some point he said, like, okay, it's time for me to move on. So they introduced a new guy who is definitely not Decade.
Right.
Who is Kamen Rider Legend.
And my understanding is that, like, for months during the run of Gotchard, they were, like, pushing him in merch and elsewhere in image songs and stuff. And so him finally showing up in the main show was supposed to be a big event. And I don't give a shit because he sucks.
Yeah, because the character sucks. He's boring. He's like a generic foppish, like, arrogant dude. He is like a stupid Mary Sue who kicks everyone's ass all the time. He has nothing to do with the show. Like, he just shows up, and so all of a sudden the show becomes about him.
I think that was like what has like permanently killed Gotchard for me. Like, I am no longer enjoying every episode. Like, I'm no longer getting any enjoyment out of it pretty much at all, because the show is like, and now the final big bad villain has appeared, and he is here, but we're going to deal with this other shit for 4 episodes, and occasionally the real villain is going to be off in the back, like, waving. It's just like, this sucks.
Yeah, because like the entire plot of that arc with Kamen Rider Legend involves him fighting like an evil organization that has also
villains.
That's the thing. They're not even his villains because they're also working together with another evil organization from another fucking streaming exclusive spin-off that they want you to watch.
I don't care anymore. Right.
Like, and that's that's like the exact problem, right? And then when he finally fucks back off to his own dimension, you're like, finally we can get the plot of Gotchard going again, and then you just realize that they have no ideas left. Like, they defeated the main villain. Now the main villain's boss shows up. He's a generic evil dude who wants to destroy the world.
And then his brother and sister show up because there's actually 3 of them, and I just don't care anymore. Here's a wacky new mascot. Don't you love our shitty new mascot, Nijigon, who will show up and wave around on screen and never stop talking? We had Hopper. We had our wacky little grasshopper guy who said Hopper won, and we're like, yeah, we love Hopper won. And then we introduce Nijigon, the blue and red dragon who never fucking shuts up. And every episode for the past 3 episodes has been like, wow, isn't Nijigon so cool? Doesn't he make the best form for Gotchard? Isn't he cool and strong? Nijigon's gonna fly off on his own and become friends with literally everybody he meets, because isn't Nijigon so good? And no, he's not. I'm so sick of this show now.
So the show is just become this like potpourri of like extremely plot twist moments and like goofy bits and like irrelevant fights and like bringing back things that were only relevant 20 episodes ago. It's just a complete mess. Right. Like one episode literally starts with Hopper 1, like the little mascot who is like a cute grasshopper puppet thing that they like sort of move around the screen in like the most amateurish way possible, going on an adventure to go get a flower for Kamen Rider. And then in the meantime, the new villain shows up, and then he turns Hopper into an evil monster, and Kamen Rider has to kill his like best friend, the mascot, and it's just complete tonal whiplash because that episode also started with them. Okay, so there's.
I was going to joke that they kill Hopper, and I did not expect you to tell me that he actually killed him.
They kill Hopper because in the previous episode, they killed Skabaus. Skabaus, who is a literal skateboard, and they kill him, and he turns gray, and the next episode starts with them rushing Skabaus to the emergency room like we're on an episode of ER or Grey's Anatomy, trying to fucking reanimate this prop skateboard who has died.
I should clarify, this bit was good. This bit was good.
Right. That sounds amazing.
The problem is, it's like, and like we loved the show at the beginning when it was doing like dumb shit with Wrestler G and stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem is sort of that has taken over any other aspect of Gotchard.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just generic wackiness.
Yeah,
It is just like the broadest, most like easy target kids shit imaginable.
Like the latest episode, we just had a stupid subplot about like Nijigon, the new cool mascot.
We have to stop talking about Nijigon.
Hanging out with like an idol who is played by one of the idols they hired to promote the Kamen Rider franchise.
What's the matter? Don't you love Nijigon?
Oh my god!
And there's like an entire musical sequence where the girls are dancing and singing a song about Nijigon, and then Nijigon is flying around the screen and he's CG and he's rapping, and everyone is like, "Wow, Nijigon, you're so cool!" And it's like the worst thing you've ever seen. And then all of a sudden, the bad guy shows up and they kill him, and the old bad guy comes back, and it's just, you don't care.
I think the key thing, like, which I think both Iroh and Aqua have been trying to say, is that the wackiness was fine when it was paired with like a considered structure, which also included character development and plot advancement. And in the early parts of this show, when Hasegawa was writing the majority of episodes, that balance was struck well. You know, we would get a serious episode with some character development. We'd get a silly episode that nevertheless, you know, brought our heroes closer together, you know, and sort of in the last dozen episodes, it's just sort of been non-stop random events plot happening.
It's just stuff.
There's been no consideration to sort of building a skeleton to any sort of foreshadowing or character arcs. It's just stuff happening. And
like the only heart remaining in the show is like the subplot with the like villain squad, that is still like kind of still going on, where they're like these three like homunculus sisters who were created by the first villain, and then he died, so they like moved on to serving the new villain, but then they decided, oh, you know, the old villain was our dad, we want him back, and there's like a bunch of like family drama and that stuff is like the only thing that is still remotely endearing about the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the actors playing those characters, one of which is a literal 8-year-old child, you can at least tell that they care about this complete bullshit that they have to play out.
I mean, also, like, they are given dialogue and motivation.
Yeah.
You know, like, their dialogue actually pertains to their character advancement, as opposed to we have talked
to Renee, who is a bag of potatoes.
Yeah. We have talked too much about Kamen Rider.
Yes,
but
well, this is all to say, Boonboomger is here also, and it has been a dumb kids show, and that's exactly what it needs to be.
Yes, it is a show about a robot called Bundorio Bunderas, who was the biggest champion of the international galactic wacky race, but he had to go into hiding. But now his big enemy, Bune Diesel, has shown up, and they were rivals because Bune Diesel was always ahead of him.
Yeah.
And Bune Diesel has teamed up with this jackass who is now the 6th Ranger of the Boonboomger team, but he's actually fighting against the team because you know he's a rogue who plays all sides, and he has a GameCube controller that turns into a bow.
Also, he's a sick gamer.
The thing about Boonboomger is that it's, and I think I have always had an easier time being interested in Sentai compared to Rider because of this, and it is that Sentai can just be Sentai. It does not have to have that difficult of a plot. It does not have to have too much going on because it is Monster of the Week in its purest form of we are 5 to 6 guys who do something ? And every week, the bad guys show up and make one monster, and we have to fight this one monster who has a wacky gimmick, and at the end, we get into a robot to punch the monster because the monster got big. And this framework is untouchable, right? Like, this framework is what it is. They cannot change it because there's no need to change it.
To the point where, like, every season of Sentai will have a body swap episode, a monster episode, wants to be your friend episode, And I mean, like, what I called the like episode the 6th Ranger appears like to the dot, right?
Yes, because traditionally
because it always is
episode 16.
Yeah, because it always is, and that's and that lets Sentai be this extreme formularity. Like it lets it.
It makes it more delightful when the variations do show up.
Right.
You know, you are excited. You are excited to see, and it helps that Boonboomger is very clearly like a deliberate throwback type of Sentai, which means fairly minimal CGI, back to like lycra and spandex for the costumes. You know, just. Right. So far, just one 6th Ranger.
The stupid, race car robot that, like, we put on a treadmill to make it look like it's riding around the city.
That's what I want. I just want silly practical effects, like some chops like just whap whap.
Is the 6th Ranger always green?
No.
Okay.
This time he's purple and yellow.
Okay.
I must emphasize the 6th Ranger. Part of the reason the 6th Ranger works so well is he is so colossally hateable. You just want to punch this dude in the face straight away. He is such a piece of shit. Like, and it's great. Like, he has a ridiculous mullet. Like, he talks in extreme cool speak.
This is the thing. Like, I'm shitting all over Kamen Rider for descending into like dumb comedy shit, because Kamen Rider always like at least tries to have more of a plot, tries to, you know, be a little bit more serious usually, and so watching that fall apart is frustrating because it's like maybe you shouldn't have even tried.
Yeah,
right.
Super Sentai is pantomime. Like,
yeah,
it is.
Sentai never tried.
You are encouraged to spot the tropes and laugh along with them.
Yeah.
You know, like in the obligatory episode where the monster turns out to be good.
God, that was actually hilarious.
The monster is a dinosaur, and so the bad guys show up dressed as hunters, which includes dressing the tiny toy car in like a bandana and a Stetson. And they're all wearing big badges that say in English underneath, "No Kyoryu." Like, that's the sort of thing. Like, it is such a better appreciation of like the camp, the broad pantomime style, which is what tokusatsu does best. You know, it's tokusatsu can only ever be comedy or melodrama. It must be one of the two, right?
Yeah.
And I think that like Kamen Rider is failed melodrama, Super Sentai is successful pantomime, at least at the moment.
Yeah.
You know. And it's just much more enjoyable because of it. You know, will that get old after 50 episodes? Maybe. It's happened in the past. But for the moment, it is just so much more enjoyable. And
oh, go ahead. Sorry, finish.
No, please.
I was going to ask, have there been any other notable wacky monsters?
They're all wacky because they
really weird
they
ones.
They had a gym monster who tormented the populace by making them lift dumbbells that were too heavy, right?
Like, there was a monster that was in the episode which aired in Golden Week. There was a monster which was just one of those flying fish banners, whose power was to, you know, just get blown away by the wind.
Sure.
You
know, they have all been like super stupid.
Right.
Monsters that like barely do anything evil.
A monster turn everyone's shoes into Geta, the clogs, and populace go, "Oh no, these shoes don't match my outfit anymore."
Yeah, I get you. I get it. Yep.
Yeah, it is totally just the most petty mischief imaginable.
Right.
Like
lowest possible stakes,
and that's fun. Right. That's kind of what I want from Sentai. We were complaining for a year that King Oger tried to do too much and could not do it well. Right. And yeah.
The scales always must stay balanced, I guess.
Yep. I will say, however, that 1 point against Super Sentai, no Nijigon.
And on that note, I think we can end this episode. That puts the bow on spring 2024 season. Next time you see us, we'll be talking about summer season. So, you know, keep an eye out for upcoming first looks. It's going to be our 12th anniversary, season 45 of the GLORIO blog.
Farewell to the season of band drama.
Yeah, farewell to the season of band drama. So, on that note, check us. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com. So keep an eye out for upcoming first look posts on the new shows coming up. You can follow us on co-host at GLORIO. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. I guess not Google Play anymore. I might need to take that link off. Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe. Ring that notification bell. You know, tell us what your favorite shows were this season. Did we miss anything? Or just tell us that you agree that Girls Band Cry is the best show. Whatever. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everybody next time.
Bye.
Nijigon.